Well, hello. Today we have a 30-minute intermediate Pilates practice that's going to tone our core from every angle. Welcome, my name is Mariah. Welcome to my Wellthy Boss channel. In case you're new, wanted to let you know that every week I bring you a new barre, Pilates, or yoga workout or meditation to keep you feeling your best. So if that type of thing is up your alley, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Now for today's practice, I will be using an optional Pilates ring. If you don't have a Pilates ring, no problem. You're still gonna get an amazing workout. Let's get to work.
Coming to lie on our backs with the soles of the feet on the ground, knees bent. You're gonna grab the Pilates ring if you have one. If not, then don't do it. We're gonna hold that circle if we have it above our chest. Otherwise, fingertips are just gonna reach right above the shoulders. And this is a small but subtle movement, but as we take our inhale, watch as my shoulders round away from the mat underneath me. So my head is on the ground, but I'm lifting that circle up by kind of taking the shoulders forward, rounding them forward. On the exhale, maybe give that circle a little squeeze if I'm holding on to it. Without bending the elbows, draw those shoulders back onto the mat behind you. So this is our opening scapular stabilization with breath activation. So every time we inhale, we're lifting the circle up to the ceiling. Every time we exhale, that circle drops down about 1 inch or 2, widening the shoulders, broadening them underneath us. Good. And a Pilates breath we take in through the nose, out through the mouth, just like you're blowing out a little birthday candle. You feel the belly pull in. Good, let's do that 2 more times. Good, and then from there, if you're holding onto that circle, just giving it a little squeeze. If not, just taking those fingertips right above the shoulders, but keep the shoulders in that backward position. So where we were at the bottom of the exhale, we continue to stay here, sweeping the arms over the head. And as you do this, so whether you have the circle or not, you're tapping the fingers behind your head. As you do this, draw your shoulders up around your ears. This is kind of like what we tell you not to do most of the time as Pilates instructors. I want you to shrug those shoulders out. This is called elevation of the shoulders. And then as you take the hands back above the chest, holding on to the circle or not, go ahead and send the shoulders down away from the ears. We'll do that again. Let's inhale, send the circle behind us, or the fingers. Exhale, take that back over the chest. So every time we reach fingertips behind us, we're pulling the shoulders with us, just to be aware of the difference then when we do drop the shoulders down away from the ears. Good. Let's do that 2 more times. Squeezing that belly in on the exhale. Last time, please. Powerful exhale. And then now we're going to leave those shoulders down away from the ears. Let's take 3 deep breaths here, just fingertips above the shoulders, feeling the shoulders behind us and down away from the ears. This is really where we want them to stay for most of the practice today. And then grabbing hold of the shins, we're gonna rock like a ball, roll like a ball up into seated position, making our way all the way up to a high kneeling position. You can always throw a blanket or an extra little cushion under your knees if that bothers your knees at all. And I'm gonna be demonstrating thigh stretch today, utilizing a little bit of upper body strength work with the magic circle. If you don't have the magic circle, just do the lower body work. From here, we're going to take the elbows in towards the chest, giving that circle a little squeeze, and then being careful not to go further than your knees are happy with. Start to lean back, so there's no bend in the hips, just a little lean back until you feel those thighs light up, pressing the circle forward if you have it, which shouldn't take very long at all. And then I'm going to go and use an exhale, a traditional fitness breath, to come all the way back up, because that's a big movement back up. Go, let's try that again. So we're leaning back into that thigh stretch. Extend that circle forward if you have it. And then powerful return up top. Good. We should be feeling this in the front of the thighs. Again, if it's bothering your knees, maybe you have tight quadriceps, or we're still working on that quad strength, then just don't go back very far. Obviously, the further back you go, the more challenging it's going to be on those quads. Very good. How about one more? You got one more in you? I think you do. There we go. Perfect. From here, we're coming into our spine twist. So if you don't have the circle, your arms are just going to come out long by the side. If you do have hold that circle, just give it a nice little squeeze. Shoulders down away from the ears and back, taking the chest forward. And then on your inhale, could you rotate towards the right? So it's really important that we keep our hips forward as we take the chest to the right. And then we'll exhale, coming back towards the middle. And inhale, reversing to the other side. Perfect. So coming back to center between each one, getting recalibrated. So this is one of those movements that can be super easy if you let it be, or it can be super tough if you work at it. So how we work at it is we really fight to keep those hip bones facing forward the whole time instead of letting them travel with you like this. You want to try to keep the belly button and the hips facing towards me as you take the chest. Do take your gaze with you though. Your spine tends to travel in the direction that your gaze goes in. Good. Making sure you're balanced on each side, finishing up here. And then fingertips are going to reach above you with or without the circle, and drop the shoulders down away from the ears. Again, it's okay if you need to put a little bit of a bend in the elbows in order to make that happen. But if they will go straight, that's even better. Giving that circle a little squeeze if you have it. And then lifting up and over, thinking of lengthening in both sides of the body, not just the side that you're leaning away from. So both sides of the waist are smooth. And for this one, it's so powerful. I'm going to just suggest an exhale on the way back up, more of a traditional fitness breath than Pilates breath. We'll take it over to the other side. Grounding down equally through both knees. Now, if being in your knees is starting to bother you, just next time you can know you can also do this from a standing position. Good. Let's do that. Continue. So we're working side body strength here. To have a complete Pilates workout, we always want to make sure that we are working that spine, we're strengthening the spine in all three planes of motion. So forward, backward, side to side, and in rotation. So we're knocking 2 of the 3 out right away. There we go. Finishing out, making sure you're balanced on both sides. And from here, we're going to go ahead and come down onto all fours so we can get rid of that circle if we were using it. We're going to start with my favorite. We're going to do little knee hovers. So this is not a plank. We have the knees right under the hips, so there is a bend in the knee. We're going to tuck the toes, lifting the knees just 3 inches off the ground, no more than that. And then tap it back down. Lift it up, tap it back down. Lift it up, tap it back down for 3, 2, here's 1. Now, if you have that circle, or even a band, a circular band would do for this, go ahead and take your legs through that circle if that's available to you. And this time, when we hover the knees, we're going to press into the sides of the circle. So right off the bat, we have to kind of work at that outer thigh abduction strength to get the circle to keep it from falling. And then it's a lift, press, 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 tap, lift, press, 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 tap, lift, press, press, press. You got it. And then every time that you press the knees away from each other, could you try taking the staccato exhale? So it would sound like this. You lift and then inhale, lift. You got it. Finishing a last round here. We're going to take the knees down for a rest. Now, you can either continue doing one of those 2 options, or if you wanted to kind of kick it up a notch, unthread your knees, please, from the circle. And this would be just adding a little layer. So hover the knees. And then I want you to step back right, just like you're going to step into a plank, but you're not going to. You're actually going to step back in, though, keeping the knees hovered. Step back left, back in. And then we're alternating, but we're keeping the knee. We're always keeping the knees off the ground here. So they hover just a little bit. Don't let them sneak up too high, or that will actually make it a little bit easier. And we're not trying to make it easier now, are we? No, we're not. You got it. Finishing up. Perfect. And then let's come all the way down onto our forearms. With our forearm plank, we want to keep the hands apart from each other so they're as wide as the elbows to keep those collarbones open. You are going to take one foot and then the other behind you. Here we go, full plank. We're pulling the belly button in and up. We have no bend in the hips, just one straight solid line from the neck all the way to the heels, stretching the heels behind you. And then if your shoulders are healthy, we're going to add a little saw. So first of all, pressing up in the space between the shoulder blades, kind of broadening the shoulders. And then here, tick-tocking that weight forward just a few inches and then coming back so that those shoulders are once again above the elbows. Let's do that again. Pressing forward into that saw and back. So continuing to take these, you can always drop the knees down anytime you need a little recovery. You got it. Let's take two more. Perfect. Now you can either take a little recovery or you can stay up in this forearm plank, lifting the right leg just a couple inches off the ground. So the right foot comes off the ground. Could you give me little pulses? Up, out, in, and down. We're going to stay on the same side. Okay, so it's up, out, in, down. If you wanted it to be more challenging still, then when you lower that leg down, when you pulse it down, then still keep it a little bit above the ground. So if you keep the foot off the ground the whole time, really get a lot of bang for your buck here. Let's do 3, 2, 1, and then we'll take it to the other side. You're so welcome to take your knees down in between if you choose. You got it. And it's a little lift, out, in, down. Lift, out, in, down. Now, how about the Pilates breath? Are we still using that? It's super critical that we continue to rely on that steady flow of breath. Squeezing belly in, pursing the lips for the exhale. Inhale, feeling the lungs float out to the sides of the ribs. Last one, please. Oh dear, so good. Let's come onto our belly. We're going to come into swimming, working back, strength in our back extensors. So belly's on the ground. Taking arms overhead and feet long behind us, we're going to alternate. So as we lift the right arm, we're lifting the left leg, and then we'll just switch. And then maybe you start to pick up the pace a little bit. So your hips are down, belly button, those pulling away from the mat. And you're just kind of swimming, just like you're paddling through water. The time I'm recording this, I'm getting ready to go take a cruise in Mexico. So that's what I'm thinking about. Swimming on the beach in Mexico sounds pretty good. And then let's go ahead and counter stretch that with our shell pose, also known as child's pose from yoga. Pressing hips over heels. Very nice. Moving on to our side plank work next. So we're going to roll over onto one side. We're going to come onto long arm if that is okay on your wrist. You can always just take this into a forearm, but if you're planning to thread the needle, I like to kind of start from that high plank position. One foot can be in front of the other for balance. And then from here, we're going to alternate threading the needle. So reaching that top hand underneath, take it back up, and then we're going to do a little hip dip. So dipping the hips maybe 3 inches, take it back up, and then we thread the needle again. Lift back up, take to the hips. Make sure you're breathing deeply here. 1 breath per movement. Very nice. Last one, please. Very good. Let's come all the way on to our side, and you're going to just rest that head down onto the bottom arm. Top arm is going to come onto the ground to support you, but let's keep those shoulders nice and open. Hips are stacked, legs are stacked. Again, if this bothers your hips, if anything ever feels uncomfortable by having the joint on the mat, you can put a little blanket or extra pillow underneath you. Otherwise, we're going to challenge the sides of our waist now as we press the legs into each other, lift both legs up, and then both legs down. So they're squeezing in towards each other, but it's the strength at the top of your waist that's lifting everything up and release. up and release. How about 3? Here's 2 and 1. Really, really good. Before we do the other side, we'll just kind of transition onto our back. So coming onto the back next, we're going to take our toe taps. So we're coming into a tabletop position, 90-degree bend in the knees. Knees are right above hips, and we have the ankles right forward of the knees. So this one, I want you to actually watch this one, if you can kind of turn to look at me for a sec, because this one I see a lot of things here, but I want to kind of show you what it is so you'll get the best work. So with the toe tap, I keep a 90-degree bend in my knee the whole time. What I often see here is a bending and straightening either this way of the legs, so taking the legs out forward, or just doing like a hamstring curl, which is not really giving us any benefit in the abdominals, which is where we want it. So we keep the knees this nice 90 degrees. We point the toes. We tap by taking the hip forward. So this is coming from the hip joint, not from the knee joint. And then switch, switch, switch. A super important cue here that you want to think about is we need to have the low back on the mat the whole time that you do this. So there's no arch underneath the low back. That's what's ensuring that we are working into the abdominals where we want to work rather than straining the low back. And then if this is going well and you want a little extra, take both legs down, tap both toes to the ground, keeping that 90-degree bend, remember, and then pull it back up on the exhale. You got it. So only give this one a go if you still have the ability to keep the arch of the back down onto the mat, so there's no light of day underneath that spine. Taking 2 more, either single or double. There it is. Now we're going to go ahead and get set up for our side lying work on the other side. So swing those legs around. We're starting with that side plank again. So long arm. We're reaching top arm up to the sky and then threading it underneath. We're going to lift the fingertips back up. Then we alternate that little hip dip. So down about 3 inches. Take it back up. You got it. So reach underneath, reach up to the sky, dip the hips, lift the hips. Let's repeat. Making sure you're still breathing. Keeping a lot of space between the bottom shoulder and ear. Very good. Let's do 1 more. Nice. And then we're going to come all the way down onto the mat. So head comes down onto the bicep. The top arm steadies you in front of you, but keep the collarbones away from each other. Squeeze those legs, send them out long towards the end of your mat. Squeeze, 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 and then lift them up and release. Lift them up and release. You should be feeling this primarily in the top of the waist. Although squeezing the legs together, you'll also get a little bit of inner thigh work as well. Here's 3. Here's 2. And 1. Nicely done. Perfect. From here, we are going to come onto our back. It is time to move into some bridging. So we are going to start with just a simple hinge bridge, meaning that we're lifting the hips and the ribs at the same time. So the whole back lifts at the same time. Taking knees bent, soles of the feet on the ground. Press your shoulders back first and then find that stability to lift the back off the ground, reaching hips towards the ceiling. From here, a few deep breaths, continuing to find that Pilates breath if we've lost it. So in through the nose, out through the mouth, through pursed lips. Go ahead, take a few more breaths here, strengthening your whole posterior chain. And then when you're ready, take your time, no rush. Hips are going to come back down onto the mat. Next time we'll move into an articulating bridge. If your back is relatively healthy, if you have any back conditions, you may want to stick with that hinge bridge, but otherwise we're going to pull the belly button in. So watch here as the arch underneath my spine actually disappears. So I pull belly in and up, and then I continue to think about pulling belly in and up. I'll feel a little bit of a stretch in the tops of my thighs as I do this, almost like I'm tucking my tail under, as I peel one section of my spine off the ground at a time. So I'm taking first my tailbone and then waistband, then low back, then mid back, reach those hips high. And then from here, we can either continue holding and breathing, or again, this is an intermediate class, so if you need some extra, you would extend the right leg just to diagonal, so only until the thighs are parallel, but the right shin would be lifted and pointed. And then from there, could you do just a little pulse up and down with that whole leg? So just a 1-inch pulse up and down, so it just moves a little bit higher, a little bit lower. As you do that, could you try keeping both the right hip and the left hip relatively quiet? That's the goal, is to kind of keep them stable here as we learn to work into the deeper core muscles that are responsible for stabilizing that pelvis. You got it. Here's 3, 2, 1. Foot comes back. You can either reset by taking another articulating bridge and then join us on the other side, or if you're ready to go on to side 2, let's do it, extending that leg long and perhaps a little pulse up and down, up and down. So taking care that both hips don't dip as you do this. This is the leg that's pulsing down and up. Today, sometimes we do something different. Very good. For 4, 3, 2, and 1. Now take that foot down. Let's take our time coming out of this. We want that articulating bridge to be super slow. So I recommend taking 2 to 3 full exhales. So sharp inhale and then exhale. Whenever you're out of air, sharp breath in. Exhale. And then taking those hips all the way down onto the ground. Good. From here, we'll stretch out that spine a little bit before working into our roll-up, so we can take the knees wide towards the shoulders. Start to tick-tock back and forth on the spine. And then I'm going to give you an option to work on your roll-up today using the magic circle if you have it. If you don't have a magic circle, I've got some options for you as well. So Pilates ring, magic circle, ring of fire, they kind of all go by different names. We use those interchangeably. So if you have the ring, I'm going to show this first. If you have the ring, starting from a lying down position, thread the right foot into the padded portion of the ring. Both hands are going to hold on to the handle. Now, it's super important that we don't round up in the shoulders, right? As we do that, we want to still keep the collarbones open, even though we'll be C-curving in the lumbar spine. So just make sure you're still keeping some space in front of the chest. And then as you start to peel up one bone at a time, see if that helps you by having that one leg extended. So what we're doing is we're putting a little bit less weight that we have to keep down on the longer end, but we're kind of adding a little bit of seesaw action to help get that chest up. Good. And then we could come all the way forward. And then we'll work our way back. So of course, keeping that left foot on the ground. Perfect. And I would probably suggest that you alternate side to side so we can get the same amount of stretch, since we are getting a bonus stretch. Now, what to do if you don't have a magic circle? I'm going to recommend that you practice your roll-ups top half and bottom half separately. That is, of course, unless you are already at a full roll-up in your practice. So a full roll-up is going to take your arms behind your head, peeling up one bone at a time. Now, it only counts if there's no momentum and the feet stay on the ground. Let's see if I got it today. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. All right. So if that is not accessible to you, then I'm going to recommend spending some time on the top half. So you would just still find that C curve. So peeling down one bone at a time until you find that part, that section where you know you're about to lose control, and then pause and then come back up one bone at a time, restack your vertebrae. So that would be your top half practice. You could stay there for a little while. And then after you practice that, you could go on to the lower half. So meanwhile, if you're working with the magic circle, just continue working with that. The lower half is going to be the half that's more challenging, so it might even be a little more frustrating for you, but I promise as long as your muscles are working, you're getting a benefit out of it. So lower half, we just pull up until we feel like we can no longer lift up without kicking the feet up or using momentum, right? Momentum doesn't help. We want to keep the momentum out of it, please. and then rolling back down. So whatever variation of the roll up that you chose, we're going to spend about another 15 seconds. So if you need to switch sides or you're moving from top half to bottom half, now's a good time to do it. Use a lot of breath. So the exhale breath is so important in our roll up. We're working the deepest layer of core muscles here. We're pulling the belly button towards the back of the spine, even when it wants to pop up. So make sure that we're working the deepest layer of muscles. Fantastic. And then let's just come all the way down onto our backs. Moving into our crisscross next. So this one, often called a bicycle, just a kind of a good old-fashioned pose that a lot of us have been, or exercise a lot of us have been doing since grade school, but it does have some Pilates origins. Making sure if your neck is feeling any type of discomfort with this, that you are pressing and kind of supporting it with the hand. Not necessarily pressing forward, you kind of want to think more about pressing the head back into the hand, but you've got a little support. Use your exhale to crisscross, your inhale to transition. Working a little oblique action, working that spine and rotation again. Fantastic. Let's do 3 more each direction. Here's 2. Here's 1. Double leg stretches next. So we'll come onto the mat, and then I like to keep my head down on the mat for this one. Traditional Pilates would have you peeling up as you take your shins towards your chest, but we spend too much time these days in cervical flexion already with our head forward. I'm going to keep my neck on the ground, or back of the head on the ground to keep my neck happy. We're going to inhale, reach the arms behind you, lowering legs to no more than 45, gluing the low back down onto the mat. And then exhale, catch your knees in your hands, squeezing belly in. Inhale, open the arms and legs away from each other. Exhale, catch the shins in your hands, squeezing in. Beautiful. So we're lengthening against gravity here, which is such a good thing to do for those abdominals. Really healthy way to strengthen while lengthening. Maybe going for 3, for 2. Here's 1. Perfect. Coming into our frog next. So if at any point your muscles start to fatigue a little bit and you're having a hard time keeping the low back on the ground, you can always slide your palms face down underneath your booty, and that will help kind of tilt the pelvis back. But if you don't need that, we're still going to make our abs do the work. Heels come together, toes apart. Knees are just to the sides of the hips. They're not all the way in towards the chest, just the sides of the hips. And then extend the legs out on a diagonal, squeezing legs together. You'll open it back out, but not all the way in towards the shoulders. We want to kind of keep the weight forward of the hips so that we can continue challenging those abdominals. You got it. Here's 3. Here's 2. Here's 1. So good. And then let's just take that right leg down onto the ground. Left leg, we're going to reach up, grab hold of the back of the calf or hamstring or foot, whatever's available. If you want a little bit more of a stretch here, you can send the opposite leg down long on the ground. Breathing, head stays on the ground for this one. This is all about releasing and stretching. And then letting go of that leg, we'll bend that knee, send it to the ground, opposite leg comes up, pulling it towards yourself. Maybe that foot on the ground slips a little bit forward until that opposite leg is straight as well. Nice recovery breaths. Let's let that go and roll all the way up.
All right, you did it. I'm so proud of you. If you liked this workout, would you please give it a thumbs up? Make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already. And I wanted to let you know that today's workout is sponsored by my free audio affirmations download. This audio affirmations is all about setting some body positive fitness intentions. So if you struggled in the past to stay consistent with your nutrition or your workout goals, we want to revolutionize this from the inside out. Honestly, everything when it comes to being consistent starts with your head. And that head component is not about being more disciplined. It's really about loving yourself and believing that you are worthy of absolute health. So start to manifest that attitude, manifest those fitness intentions by downloading my free download audio affirmations for your fitness intentions. That can be found at wellthyboss.com/audio. I'll include a link to that in the description below, so please check that out, and I will see you next time.